grab your teddy bears and tuck yourself in, 'cause this is a dream that we're never waking from in Neverending Nightmares. So, Neverending Nightmares was a Kickstarter game that was advertised as a horror title. It is mainly in black and white, and it did succeed in its goals and came out and was released. Now, we are looking at the PS4 version, which is the only physical version, but it is available on other platforms. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. So, Neverending Nightmare is a 2D black and white game that uses very minimal colors occasionally, mostly red, but occasionally it'll use a few other colors such as gold to highlight points of interest. But overall, almost the entirety of the game is black, white, and gray. You play as Thomas, and you awaken from your bed after stabbing a little girl with a knife, and you awaken in a house that is both perplexing and confusing, perplexing in its size and maze, and confusing because of many of the strange and terrible things you see among it. This game has very minimal puzzles, like there's a few in the early game, but they get less and less and very trivial. It's really just exploring the environment is the majority of the gameplay. There are things that can kill you that you do have to watch out from, but it's very minimal. Usually you can just hop into a hiding spot and get around a few enemies. There's also a deaf enemy. You just walk and don't generally get close. There's no fighting, violence, defense. It takes a more clock tower approach, but nothing really stalks you through screen like the Scissor Man. Like, doesn't follow you from room to room, so whatever things of danger or in those rooms that you encounter them in. This, I would say, is a very psychological experience. It's not meant to be action oriented or anything in that direction. And in that sense, I think it's very interesting in the concept of how the game was made. But its biggest flaw, in my opinion, is the fact that as much as I liked the psychological aspects of the game, it doesn't make up for a fun game when it's a decent amount of time. This game could have either used two directions, in my opinion, to make it more interesting. They should have went a little bit more clock tower, where things actually stalk you throughout the house at the different scenes of the game to give you some kind of threat, or invested more in puzzles. Like I said, they were very there's a point where you get an axe early on to break down a door. Go look for a source of light so you can go down into a dark room. These are very minor, and there are not a lot of them. Interactions with items is really very little. It's very strange how there's more in the beginning versus later in the game. Now, there are also a bunch of portraits you can interact with. These portraits were Kickstarters of higher tier rewards, so nice to look at, but doesn't really add to the gameplay or anything. There's no looking for giant combinations of secret numbers or anything. It's just a lot of wandering around, and that's kind of the big draw. It's like the big strike over time. At first, it's interesting because you don't know anything about the game when you're going in it blind. The visuals are very nice. The mood of the music and everything sets the mood. It's very weird. A lot of things are left for you to interpret. But that can only carry a game so far when there's nothing else really to do. You just wander around until you push the game forward. Now, there are 3 different endings, which one of them really doesn't really do much. It's kind of more confusing, really. But the 3 different endings give you a little perspective on what could be happening to Thomas that's leading to these strange nightmares he keeps happening. Overall, I found the endings not really satisfying in the end, so it's an interesting game in its design, but it lacks a lot of substance, in my opinion. It's something I would check out if you get for a cheap price, but outside of the how could I say the interesting groundwork, like honestly, if they went either in a more clock tower design or just involved a lot more Silent Hill like puzzles in the house, it could have made a much more interesting experience, because like 70% of the game you're just running through this house going to the right the majority of the time. There's not even too much of a maze to the house. There's only a few breaking paths that you can maybe get a little lost in, and most of those usually are what lead to the different endings. And like I said, I give it to the visuals in that. It actually aesthetically very nice. It's just really disappointing in the end. Well, it just doesn't lead to a satisfying conclusion, in my opinion. Now, there are a number of jump scares and things to whittle you down, and a few of them are pretty good, to be honest. There are a few nice jump scares that got me and that I thought were pretty well designed and implemented, but in the end, it just... I can only really recommend it as a cheap game you can get. Now, this game, as I said, is available on different platforms. It's available on PC, Ouya, Linux, PS4, Vita, iOS, Android, Nintendo Switch, but it's only currently of this video physically on PS4 via Limited One Games. Though I wouldn't be surprised if in time maybe a Switch version could pop up with a limited company, maybe, possibly. But this game is available DRM free, and honestly, this is one of those kind of short experience kind of games that, or I would file this under either one of those short games or experimental games that I would just get on PC on sale. Digitally, it goes for $14.99 on all platforms, and value-wise, I would say this game's more of a $5 range. Honestly, I feel like this is a really overpriced digital price of this game. Like I said, there's a lot of interesting groundwork here, but it feels like there's just not any real substance between the beginning and the end for the majority of the time. Just some interesting jump scares here and there, but it's mainly point A to point B, aside from the split, which the split is later in the story too. Like, it's not like your actions for a chunk of the game dictate where you go. It's about midway into a one where you can cause the split to go towards the 3 different endings. So it's not even going in a very Silent Hill 2 direction where a lot of your actions and things you do and how you interact with objects can affect what kind of ending you get. So it just feels like there's just a lot of a skeleton of an idea here that just didn't really lead to a fantastic final product. I wouldn't say not check it out. Like I said, I think if you can get it on sale around $5, I think that's a decent price. I would snag the DRM free version versus getting the physical version. But if you are very interested in getting the physical version, You're looking currently on eBay around 40 to 60 bucks, depending on who you go with. There are a lot of listings for it on eBay, so you could try for some bids, make some offers, because there are a lot, and I don't think this will be like something that's going to majorly go up quickly compared to like Shantae games for limited one games. So I would say maybe try shoot some offers at some of the people on eBay of that. But yeah, that's the price range you're going for if you want to get physically. It's not absolutely terrible, like I said. It's just I feel like it's an overpriced experimental game that just didn't pan out enough substance to it. The last thing I would like to know is before I go into spoilers, because I will talk about during the spoilers, but I want to mention that this exists. This game's story has led to a lot of different theories on what's going on with Thomas. Like I said, it leaves a lot of things up in the air, and the creator actually commissioned a Japanese artist to make a manga. I think it's 10 chapter manga of Neverending Nightmares. It does give a little bit more interesting idea on what's going on in the story, but the ending still leaves it very vague on what happened. But it does give a more conclusive ending for Thomas, though still leaving it kind of vague on what the fuck the nightmares will really dealing with, though. But if you do like this game, it might be worth checking out the manga. It is free to find. I will include a link to it down below if you want to check it out. Outside that, those are my thoughts. So let's get into spoilers. So the main idea that most theory people come up with this game is that Thomas was a adopted boy in a family because of a photo you see early on in the game, and that he had an incest relationship with his sister because they will, if if accurate, they weren't actually blood related. So in technically there ain't the as taboo thing of being blood related, obviously. So the general theory is that Thomas had a relationship with his half sister, or his well, not half, that his, what's the term for it? Damn it, I'm not sure that that not your direct related sister, your adopted sister's family. That I don't know the correct term I'm thinking of. But the idea is that he had a relationship with her, and that's what the representation of stabbing her with a knife means. And at the same time, he had a daughter with her, and she looked like her mother as a child, which is why you keep seeing a child and an adult version of her. It keeps interchanging between his sister and his daughter. Now, like I said, this is one theory. Those other theories that he's just insane and it's left to your interpretation on what's true or not. Was she his sister? Was she his what? Was she his wife? Was she his doctor because of a scene that happens later in the game where she says she's a psychiatrist? It is very vague, and even the manga, even though it ends in a note of Thomas leaving the nightmare, waking up, it kind of combines the two endings that majorly give an idea of what's going on with Thomas. The third ending where he just kisses, because in the third ending he reverts back to a child, and at the end he just kisses his sister on the forehead, and it just ends. So that doesn't really give as much of a hint towards things compared to the other two, but the manga kind of combines the other two endings together, and Thomas awakens and thanks Gabby for guiding him out of the nightmare. And it really leaves the final panel really leaves it vague on whether he might still be in the nightmare possibly, or Gabby was just farewell to him, but or maybe she's still stalking him. It really doesn't give a fulfilling ending still, but it's much more fulfilling than the three endings the game has. But there are a few ideas you can grab from the manga that help apply a little bit more idea to the game. But like I said, it was just kind of an interesting experiment. Didn't pan out to be a magical, fantastic indie hit. So I would get on the cheap of that. Interesting fun fact too, the Cradle was actually trying to do another Kickstarter for another game in a similar vein to this, which is kind of a shame because, like I said, this was some good groundwork, and this spiritual sequel was going to be around like a pregnant woman on an island or something like that, and it failed on Kickstarter, and the Cradle has literally said nothing about it at all since, so it's presumed it's just given up, which is a bit of a shame, and I think goes to show that in the end, while a lot of people saw a lot of promise with the demo and the the progression on Kickstarter and that, I feel like it shows the final product didn't meet a lot of people's expectations at the end, which is a bit of a shame because, like I said, this has a lot of nice psychological elements which you don't usually see in Western games very often. They usually like going very action oriented, so I give it a lot of nice brownie points for that. So, but at the end of the day, check it out if you have a few spare bucks to pass on or not. But at the end, that's it. Take it easy and stay out of your nightmares.